Good morning, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. It's Monday, August 25th, 2025. Happy birthday, Doug Brunt. And this is your AM update.
After we do this, we'll go to another location and we'll make it safe also. Chicago's a mess.
President Trump reportedly planning to mobilize the National Guard in Chicago as part of an overall effort to help blue cities fix their crime problems.
We are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law.
The FBI raids former National Security Advisor to Trump 1.0 and current Trump critic John Bolton's home. The media calls it retribution. And the parents of missing baby Emmanuel Haro arrested on suspicion of murder. All that and more coming up in just a moment on your AM update. I've been talking a lot lately about Riverbend Ranch, and that's because I love their steaks. Riverbend Ranch has taken Black Angus beef to a whole new level. For the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating a very elite Angus herd by using ultrasound to select genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. When you buy from Riverbend Ranch, you are not only supporting the 64 cowboys and cowgirls and their families who work on the ranch, but you're also supporting over 260 other U.S. ranches and the hundreds of American families who work on those ranches. It is born in the USA, raised in the USA, and processed in the USA. It is aged to perfection for 21 days and shipped directly from the ranch to your home. This is not your average Black Angus beef. So order from riverbendranch.com and use the promo code Megyn for $20 off your first order. And let me know what you think. riverbendranch.com, promo code Megyn. President Trump eyes Chicago as the next blue city in line for intervention as the White House's takeover of D.C. police in early August leads to a dramatic drop in crime. D.C. Metropolitan Police reporting 0 homicides from August 14th to August 24th, one of the longest murder-free stretches in recent years. According to a February report by Rochester Institute of Technology, prior to the crackdown, D.C. had the 4th highest murder rate per capita in the country. President Trump from the White House on Friday telling reporters he plans to expand the operation.
After we do this, we'll go to another location and we'll make it safe also. We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this. And it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one. But they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
The Washington Post reporting on Saturday the Pentagon is working on plans to deploy the National Guard to Chicago in what could be a model for other major cities run by Democrats opposed to mobilizing troops. For the past 13 years, Chicago holds the record for most homicides per year in absolute terms of any U.S. city, with 573 in 2024. The Post reporting at least a few thousand members of the National Guard could mobilize in Chicago as early as September. Over the weekend, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker reposting a New York Times op-ed headline, quote, Trump's crackdown will make crime worse, and writing, quote, Donald Trump's threat to bring the National Guard to Chicago is not about safety. It's a test of the limits of his power and a trial run for a police state. Illinois has long worked with federal law enforcement to tackle crime, but we won't let a dictator impose his will. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson with a more aggressive response Sunday morning on MSNBC, MS Now, threatening legal action and perhaps a civilian uprising.
You know, look, we're going to remain firm. We'll take legal action. But the people of this city are accustomed to rising up against tyranny. And if that's necessary, I believe that the people of Chicago will stand firm alongside of me as I work every single day to protect the people of this city.
President Trump on Sunday also threatening to send troops into Baltimore. Writing on Truth Social, quote, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland has asked in a rather nasty and provocative tone that I walk the streets of Maryland with him. I assume he is talking about out-of-control, crime-ridden Baltimore? As president, I would much prefer that he clean up this crime disaster before I go there for a walk. Vice President J.D. Vance Sunday on NBC saying the administration is aiming to provide an example for all citizens living in crime-ridden cities.
If you look, for example, at the murder rate in D.C., it rivals some of the worst cities, the most violent cities anywhere in the world. That's a disgrace for our nation. That's a disgrace for the residents who live in D.C., who just want to take their kids to a park or walk down Union Station or take their family out for a bite to eat without being accosted by a vagrant or a violent criminal. We don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in D.C. or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets.
FBI agents raiding the home and office of former Trump administration national security advisor and current Trump critic John Bolton on Friday morning. The FBI reportedly investigating whether Bolton sent classified documents to his family from a private email server while working in the White House under the first Trump administration prior to his departure from the White House in 2019. The raid reviving a long-standing dispute between President Trump and John Bolton. In 2020, the Trump administration unsuccessfully sued to stop publication of Bolton's memoir, alleging it contained classified information. Article 3 Project founder and Trump insider Mike Davis telling Real Clear Politics his prediction is, quote, Democrats, rhinos, and reporters who think this raid on John Bolton is about his book will be very embarrassed when the search warrant becomes public. The investigation reportedly frozen under the Biden administration and reopened under FBI Director Kash Patel, who posted on X shortly after the raid began, quote, no one is above the law. FBI agents on a mission. Attorney General Pam Bondi adding, quote, America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued, always. President Trump asked about the raid on Friday.
Mr. President, have you been briefed on the FBI raid of John Bolton soon?
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid.
Establishment media portraying the raid as another sign of authoritarian retribution on the president's enemies.
And this is the latest indication the Trump administration is targeting the president's political enemies.
It looks like it's just more revenge and more retribution on his political enemies.
He said he was going to go after all of these individuals, and one by one, he's slowly doing that.
Vice President J.D. Vance Sunday on NBC reacting to that criticism.
Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump?
No, not at all. And in fact, if we were trying to do that, we would just throw out prosecutions willy-nilly like the Biden administration DOJ did, prosecutions that later got thrown out in court. If we bring a case, and of course we haven't done that yet, the Department of Justice has not done that yet, we are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law. We're going to be careful about that. We're going to be deliberate about that because we don't think that we should throw people, even if they disagree with us politically, maybe especially if they disagree with us politically, you shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison.
Former FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe, who was fired in 2018 for unauthorized leaks and, quote, lack of candor, meaning lying to investigators, a decision ultimately overturned by a court shortly after President Biden took office, bashing Director Patel on CNN as the raid was ongoing.
So I should say, with respect to the director's social media posting, I mean, it's yet another example of, in my opinion, Kash Patel failing to live up to the example of his predecessors. This is not the kind of thing that any FBI director has ever done. FBI directors don't gratuitously point towards search warrants and the people who are the targets of those warrants in any sort of a way that could possibly be interpreted as grandstanding. So I think the implication here is pretty clear. He wanted to draw attention to this law enforcement, this sensitive law enforcement activity at John Bolton's house, which anytime you draw press attention to a search warrant execution, you are elevating the risk that is posed to both the agents and the occupants at that place. So it's a pretty irresponsible thing to do.
So weird the FBI never tips anyone off. Tell it to journalist and Biden antagonist James O'Keefe, who had his home raided by the FBI and conveniently the New York Times magically knew all about it in real time.
I was in handcuffs and I was in my apartment. The FBI had just executed a search warrant against an American journalist and unlawfully and broke the law. And then minutes later, I get a text message from Mike Schmidt, national security reporter in the New York Times, who somehow he knows all these details. And I don't think the neighbors tipped him off that this is something that he knew. He had leaks from the Department of Justice.
Bolton has not yet been charged or arrested. Coming up, the search for missing baby Emmanuel Haro takes a chilling turn. Authorities arresting the parents for murder. As President Trump is settling into his new administration, one of the top Democrats in Congress aiming to undermine the Trump agenda is Democrat Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. And according to our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, Senator Durbin has a new plan, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, Americans have thousands of choices in credit cards, but they say Senator Durbin's plan will result in less competition and less security, which means more risk for your credit and your identity. You can learn more for yourself at guardyourcard.com. And you could consider telling your senators to stop Dick Durbin's government takeover of your credit card before it's too late. The parents of missing 7-month-old California baby Emmanuel Haro, 32-year-old Jake, and 41-year-old Rebecca arrested Friday morning for murder as authorities determined a kidnapping did not occur. Baby Emmanuel is presumed dead, and now it appears the father, Jake, is working with authorities to locate the baby's remains. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Office releasing a statement last night, quote, "This afternoon, a search for Emmanuel Haro was conducted in Moreno Valley. Investigators were assisted by cadaver dogs. Jake Haro was at the location with detectives. The search has concluded, and Emmanuel was not located." RMG News capturing photos of Jake, clad in a red jumpsuit and handcuffs, wading through the brush with investigators. Moreno Valley is an approximately 30-minute drive from the Haro home in Cabazon. Rebecca reported her son missing on August 14th, claiming he was kidnapped from a sporting goods store parking lot, telling authorities she was knocked out by an unknown person who said "Hola" while changing baby Emmanuel's diaper, and when she awoke, the baby was gone. Rebecca speaking out Sunday morning from jail to a Southern California news group reporter, maintaining her story, quote, "I want to be out looking for my baby." It is unclear if she was then or is now aware of Jake's apparent cooperation with authorities. Over the last week, investigators increasingly turning attention on the Haro home, reportedly searching it with cadaver dogs, seizing a vehicle, and electronic devices. In 2023, Jake was convicted of willful child cruelty, a local hospital alerting authorities when his then 10-week-old baby daughter from a previous marriage was brought in with a suspected broken rib, only for doctors to then discover multiple healing fractures, the details of which we won't go back into here. The Orange County Register reporting Rebecca was aware of her husband's previous child cruelty case, Rebecca describing their relationship as, quote, "wonderful." Rebecca saying, quote, "He's a good dad. He would never hurt a baby. Oh, please." That baby girl, whom he absolutely did hurt, who is now 7, was left unable to see, walk, or talk as a result of the injuries her, quote, "father" inflicted upon her. She is now in the custody of a relative. For that despicable crime, Jake was sentenced to a mere 180 days, reportedly serving only 1 day in jail for booking, the remainder in a work release program run by the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. How are these people allowed to go on having children? Why isn't there mandated chemical castration? Serious question. Prior to his Friday arrest, Jake was due back in court on a parole violation related to the child abuse case, according to the Daily Mail. Detectives searching the Haro residence on Friday. News Nation reporting investigators believe Jake is responsible for killing Emmanuel. The network reporting blood was found inside the home, that all photos of Emmanuel and the baby's clothing had been removed. True crime journalist Annie Elise reporting extended family had not seen Emmanuel for at least a month prior to his disappearance. Authorities also confirming another child in the Haro household was removed by Child Protective Services. Police booking Jake and Rebecca in a Riverside County jail without bail, saying no other suspects remain outstanding. The area where the Haro family lives, surrounded by miles of rough terrain, providing a daunting challenge to the investigators as the search for Emmanuel's remains continues. A tentative court date for the Haros set for Tuesday. And that'll do it for your AM update. I'm Megyn Kelly. Join me back here for the Megyn Kelly Show, live on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111 at noon East, on youtube.com/Megyn Kelly, and on all podcast platforms.